For most of human history, the man who heard voices no one else could hear didn't get locked away. He got fed first. Think about that. The one who talked to the empty air, who fell down shaking and woke up speaking for the dead, in the world that made us, he got the warmest spot by the fire and the best cut of the kill. In a cave in northern Iraq lies a Neanderthal who was blind in one eye, missing most of one arm and crippled in one leg. He should have died young. Instead, he lived for years, kept alive by hands that gained nothing from keeping him. By the end of this, you'll understand why the voice some of you hear in your own head, the one that isn't quite yours, may be 40,000 years old, and why we might be the strangest humans who ever lived for calling it a sickness. Start with your own ordinary day. A mind that works differently now gets a name for it, a form to fill out, a quiet room and a prescription. We sort minds into working and broken, and we do it gently, and we do it fast. Go back far enough, and there was no form. There was no word for illness the way you mean it. There was a small band of people walking across a cold and hungry world, and every single one of them had to be worth the food they ate. So here's the question that should bother you. In a world that harsh, why did the strange ones survive at all? Why weren't they the first to be left behind when the winter came and the meat ran thin? Hold on to that, because the answer is buried in a cave under a rockfall next to a body that refuses to make sense. His name, the name the diggers gave him, was Nandi. In the records, he's Shannidar I. He was pulled out of Shanidar Cave in the Zagros Mountains, and he'd been lying there for something like 50,000 years. A Neanderthal man. One of the cousins we like to imagine as brutes, as dumb muscle that lost the race to us. Look at his bones, and that whole story starts to crack. Read his skeleton like a diary, and it's a diary of catastrophe. The right arm, withered and broken, useless, possibly amputated below the elbow long before he died. The left side of the skull crushed around the eye socket, the kind of blow that probably left him blind on that side. The right foot and lower leg, wrecked. A heavy limp, if he could walk at all. Deaf, some think, in one ear. Now put that body on the Ice Age steppe. Open grassland, biting cold, hyenas and big cats and herds that move faster than any person. Out there, a body that can't run is already a corpse that doesn't know the date yet. You can't grip a spear. You can't flee. You can't even see the thing coming from your blind side. An injury like his kills you in days. And here's the twist hiding in the calcium. Those terrible wounds. Healed. The broken bone knitted. The crushed skull sealed over. That only happens with time. Months, years of it. Which means that after the accident that should have finished him, Nandi kept living. And living. Somebody didn't let him die. Somebody carried him. Fed a blind, one-armed, limping man food he could not catch and could barely chew, kept him warm through winters he could not survive alone, and every scrap handed to Nandi was a scrap not eaten by a child who could grow into a hunter. This wasn't one warm afternoon of pity. It was a decision, remade every single day for years by a tribe that close to starving. So the question sharpens into something almost unbearable. Why? Why keep a man who couldn't repay you? Not once, but constantly. The easy answer is love, and love is real, and maybe that's part of it. But consider a harder possibility. What if usefulness was never only about who could carry a carcass? What if some of the people the modern world would call broken were doing a job the hunt could never do? A job so vital the tribe would starve a little to keep them. Because the cleverest thing the pressure of that world ever produced wasn't a sharper blade. It was a roll. Picture the one whose mind ran differently. The one who dreamed dreams so vivid they seemed to arrive from somewhere else. The one who fell to the ground shaking and came back speaking of relatives long dead, of animals not yet hunted, of rain not yet fallen. In your world, that person gets a diagnosis. In their world, that person got a title. They became the bridge, the one who could reach the place the rest of the tribe could not go. The unseen world, the world of the dead and the spirits and the answers. And we're not guessing wildly here. Go to a place called Dolní Věstonice in what's now the Czech Republic, and you'll find a burial from around 26,000 years ago. A woman laid in the earth with deliberate care. Her face may have been damaged in life. She was covered in red ochre, that deep blood-red pigment early people used again and again for the things that mattered most. She was placed apart, marked out, buried differently from the people around her. Archaeologists reach carefully for a word to describe her. The word they reach for is shaman, set apart in life, set apart in death. Given the ceremony, a whole community had to agree she deserved. Now the loop I opened earlier starts to close. What if those voices, the ones we medicate, were treated by our ancestors as information? Not noise, not madness, signal, a channel to knowledge a hungry tribe literally could not afford to ignore. Where should we hunt tomorrow? Is this sickness a curse or will it pass? Why did the child die? When you have no science, the mind that hears the answers, even if the answers come from inside its own strange wiring, is the most valuable mind you have. You would feed that mind first, too. And look what people were willing to build for it. Travel to a hillside in southern Turkey called Göbekli Tepe, massive stone pillars, some taller than 3 men and heavier than a truck, carved with foxes and scorpions and vultures arranged in great rings. Nothing strange about that, except the date. This place is around 11,000 years old. It was raised before farming, before pottery, before the wheel, before cities, before writing, before almost everything we think of as civilization. It was built by hunter-gatherers, people with no metal, no draft animals, no towns, and they cut tons of rock out of the ground and dragged it up a hill and stood it upright. For something you cannot eat. You can't live in Göbekli Tepe. You can't farm it. It grows no food. It is, as far as anyone can tell, a place to reach the other world. A temple, at the dawn of everything. And that flips the story we were all taught. We were told it went. First people settled down and farmed, then they had spare time. Then they invented gods and temples. Göbekli Tepe whispers the opposite. Maybe belief came first. Maybe the need to gather in a sacred place, to touch the unseen, to answer the dead, maybe that came before the bread. Maybe the temple came before the town, and the town grew up around the temple because that's where everyone already came. The voices didn't follow civilization. The voices may have built it, and this doesn't stop at the edge of prehistory. It walks straight into the world of writing in cities and keeps going. Go to Delphi in ancient Greece, thousands of years later than that Turkish hillside. On a mountainside sits the most famous oracle in the world. Kings and generals travel for weeks to stand before a priestess called the Pythia. She sits over a crack in the earth and she speaks, and the words that come out. The Greeks did not believe those words were hers. She was the mouthpiece. The god spoke through her. She heard a voice that was not her own, and the most powerful men alive shaped empires around what it said. Notice the pattern that is held from a Neanderthal cave to a Greek temple. For most of the human story, hearing a voice inside you that felt like it came from somewhere else was not a symptom. It was ordinary. Sometimes it was holy. Some thinkers have gone further and argued that ancient people routinely experienced their own thoughts as voices from gods or ancestors and only slowly learned to hear those thoughts as themselves. Whether or not that's the whole truth, the drift of the evidence points one hard direction, and it lands on us. Here's the reversal. We are the strange ones. Out of all the humans who ever lived, we may be the very first to take that inner voice. A thing our ancestors fed, honored, buried in red ochre, built stone rings to hear, and call it a disease. We didn't discover the truth about those minds, we just stopped listening to them. Which brings it home, to you tonight. Right now, millions of people carry an inner voice they can't fully explain. For some, it's a running commentary, a critic, a companion, a narrator that never shuts off. For some, it's intrusive, arriving with thoughts they never chose. And a smaller number, more than you'd guess, hear a voice that genuinely does not feel like theirs. In our world, we hand most of them a label in a quiet room, but feel what's underneath it. The instinct that made a starving band carry a blind man for years, the pull to protect the fragile mind instead of discarding it, that instinct is still in you. You feel it when you can't leave someone behind. And the other thing, the mind that hears what isn't there, that fills the dark with company and the silence with speech, that's still in you too. They're not opposites. They're the two halves of the same inheritance. So let me finally answer the question I started with. The people who could hear the dead were not the outcasts of the ancient world. They were the ones a tribe kept alive on purpose. The dreamers, the shakers, the ones who spoke for the unseen. We think we found them a cure. What we really did was forget what they were for. So here's the thing to carry out of this. The next time a thought arrives in your own head that doesn't quite feel like it came from you, one you didn't decide to think, in a voice that's almost not yours, don't rush to name it a glitch. Just sit with it for 1 second longer and ask yourself the question 100,000 years of your ancestors would have asked without a moment's doubt. Not what is wrong with me, but who is speaking?